Hello everyone, and welcome to Fuzzmaster Games coverage of the Mists of Pandaria talent changes. In each of these videos, we will be going over the new talent trees for each class, as well as the level 87 talent if applicable. In each video, we will be using the supposedly up-to-date Wowhead talent calculator. Up first in this video is Death Knights. In the level 15 bracket, we have Roiling Blood, Vile Spew, and Unholy Blight. In Roiling Blood, your Blood Boil ability now also triggers Pestilence if it strikes a diseased target. Vile Spew costs 60 runic power and causes an undead minion to erupt in a shower of bile, dealing 263 shadow damage to all enemies within 10 yards of the minion and infecting them with Blood Plague and Frost Fever. And Unholy Blight surrounds the Death Knight with a vile swarm of unholy insects for 10 seconds, stinging all enemies within 10 yards every 1 second, infecting them with Blood Plague and Frost Fever. Unholy Blight and Roiling Blood are great ways to get those diseases out on many targets all at once, especially if you have the ability to, say, run around. Like, if you pop Unholy Blight, which is on a 1.5 minute cooldown, if you pop Unholy Blight and run around, you're infecting everything you're touching with both diseases. And Roiling Blood is kind of like we'll call it the tank version, because you get the damage bonus and threat bonus from casting Blood Boil in the first place, which does that little bit of AoE damage, plus triggering Pestilence from your main target, which gets all those diseases spread out. Vile Spew seems more situational, and to have it cost 60 runic power is really iffy, considering a lot of Death Knights only have 100 total at any given time, never mind what they have available. So I wouldn't go with Vile Spew for the level 15 bracket, but as far as these two go, Roiling Blood I would go with for tanking. Unholy Blight would probably be my DPS choice, and as far as which one I personally would go with on my own Death Knight, probably Roiling Blood. In the level 30 bracket, we have Lichborn, Anti-Magic Zone, and Icy Grip. Lichborn is a 2-minute cooldown, and you draw upon Unholy Energy to become undead for 10 seconds. While undead, you are immune to Charm, Fear, and Sleep effects. Anti-Magic Zone has a 30-yard range and a 2-minute cooldown, and it places a large, stationary anti-magic zone that reduces spell damage done to party or raid members inside it by 75%. The anti-magic zone lasts for 10 seconds until it absorbs 10,000 plus 2 times your attack power spell damage. Icy Grip reduces the cooldown of your Death Grip spell by 15 seconds and causes your Death Grip to reduce the movement speed of the target by 50% for 6 seconds. Lichborn, definitely the PvP option, because it makes you immune to Charm, Fear, and Sleep effects. That is great for Arena, because people are going to try to focus. You pop Lichborn real quick, you don't have a problem there. Icy Grip is probably good for leveling purposes, because it doesn't have as long of a cooldown, obviously, which means you can use it more often. You can pull the mobs towards you that you want. If you got one of the ones that goes to run away in fear really fast, you Death Grip it, you beat it up some more, and its movement speed is slowed at the same time, so it doesn't have a chance to get away again. Anti-Magic Zone would be the dungeoning and raid choice, because it helps protect your party, especially if you are a DPS and your attack power is through the roof. The Anti-Magic Zone is actually going to do more protection than, say, the Blood Death Knight would do. In the level 45 bracket, we have Death's Advance, Chillblains, and Asphyxiate. Death's Advance, movement impairing effects may not reduce you below 75% of normal movement speed. Chillblains, victims of your Frost Fever disease are chilled, reducing movement speed by 50% for 10 seconds, and your Chains of Ice immobilizes targets for 3 seconds. And Asphyxiate is 30-yard range, 1-minute cooldown, and it lifts an enemy target off the ground and crushes their throat with dark energy, stunning them for 5 seconds. Functions as a silence if the target is immune to stuns, and it replaces Strangulate. Asphyxiate is Force Choke, as seen in the last boss of, I believe it was Stone Core. She would Force Choke people. That's what this Asphyxiate is. Death's Advance will be fantastic in PvP. It might actually be a little bit overpowered because some people rely on having targets slowed down so they can't catch up. With Death's Advance, that makes that a lot more difficult, and you're going to have to watch out for Death Knights specifically because of that. I would not be surprised if there's some restriction put in place in specifically PvP because of that ability. And Chill Blades, it slows targets down when you got Frost Fever. That's good for tanking because you're going to have Frost Fever on everything that's around you. And if they're slowed by 50%, they can't really get away. I mean, they shouldn't be able to get away anyway, but they really have a hard time getting away. As for the Chains of Ice, immobilizes the target for 3 seconds. That part's good for PvP, but the rest of it, great for tanking. And like I said, the Asphyxiate is like Force Choke. For what I would pick, I would go, if I was tanking, I would go with Chill Blades. I would probably DPS at the same time. PvP, definitely Death's Advance. Asphyxiate is kind of fun if you just want to Force Choke everything. In the level 60 bracket, we have Death Pact, Death Siphon, and Conversion. Death Pact, on a 2-minute cooldown, you drain vitality from an undead minion, healing the Death Knight for 50% of his maximum health, and causing the minion to suffer damage equal to 50% of its maximum health. Death Siphon is 40-yard range, it is instant, and it deals 1,869 Shadow Frost damage to an enemy, healing the Death Knight for 75% of the damage dealt. And Conversion is 10 runic power plus 100 runic power per sec. I don't know what that exactly means. Alright. Continuously converts runic power to health, draining 10 runic power per 1 second and restoring 3% of maximum health. This effect lasts until cancelled or runic power is exhausted. If you've got a lot of runic power built up and you really need some health, Conversion. Done. Great for tanking. All of these are good for tanking because you obviously need healing, especially in PvP you need healing too. I don't know about this particular set of skills for a DPS aspect or perspective, but for PvP and for tanking, these are all great. In PvP, you're probably going to need all the runic power you can get, so I don't know about having Conversion for it, but in a tanking situation where you've probably got established aggro already, and when you're really starting to have health problems later on in a longer boss fight, Conversion will probably be the way to go there. Death Siphon is also... Death Siphon could just be a help out the healer move, really. Because I'm assuming that the 1869 Shadow Frost is scaled with attack power. So, say you deal 10,000 damage with that, 75% of it being 7,500 damage gets healed back to you. And it just says it's instant, and it deals that damage. So, unless there's a cooldown on it, this is probably the way to go for a lot of people, is Death Siphon. In the level 75 bracket, we have Blood Tap, Runic Empowerment, and Runic Corruption. Blood Tap, each damaging Death Coil, Frost Strike, or Rune Strike generates a blood charge up to a maximum of 6 charges. Blood Tap consumes 3 blood charges to activate a randomly fully depleted rune as a Death Rune. Runic Empowerment, when you land a damaging Death Coil, Frost Strike, or Rune Strike, you have a 45% chance to activate a random fully depleted rune. And Runic Corruption, when you land a damaging Death Coil, Frost Strike, or Rune Strike, you have a 45% chance to activate Runic Corruption, increasing your rune regeneration rate by 100% for 3 seconds. The 45% is actually a really big chance, and because I actually kind of prefer RNG more than something you have to, say, activate, the rune regeneration rate by 100% for 3 seconds, that's going to help out a lot. The Runic Empowerment is also good, but if all of them are recharging at the same time, rather than just opening up one fully depleted rune, Runic Corruption kind of trumps the Runic Empowerment. And Blood Tap, you charge it up to 6 times, you pop Blood Tap, that's good too. Those are that Blood Tap is what I was talking about, how I prefer RNG instead of something I have to activate. This is one I personally wouldn't use. It depends on the way you play. I would probably go with Runic Corruption. Other people might go with Blood Tap. Runic Empowerment is the weakest of the 3, in my opinion. In the level 90 bracket, we have Gorfien's Grasp, Remorseless Winter, and Desecrated Ground. Gorfien's Grasp is 30-yard range, it is instant on a 1-minute cooldown, and shadowy tendrils coil around all enemies within 20 yards of a target, hostile or friendly, dealing 2,493 shadow damage and pulling them to the target's location. Remorseless Winter is on a 1-minute cooldown. It surrounds the Death Knight with a swirling tempest of frigid air, dealing 366 to 424 frost damage to enemies within 8 yards, every 1 second for 8 seconds. Each time Remorseless Winter deals damage, it reduces enemy movement speed by 15%, stacking up to 5 times. Upon receiving a 5th application, the enemy will be stunned for 6 seconds. And Desecrated Ground is instant, and it is on a 2-minute cooldown. It corrupts the ground in an 8-yard radius beneath the Death Knight, dealing 1,614 to 1,875 shadow damage every second for 10 seconds. While standing in this corruption, the Death Knight is immune to effects that cause loss of control. Gorfien's Grasp is kind of confusing because does it heal the friendly target, or does it deal that shadow damage to them? If it deals damage to them and you're trying to use that in a party situation, it's probably not going to work because you don't want to be hurting your own party. But if it does any healing, or if the damage can be negated somehow, and you cast Gorfien's Grasp on the tank, it's going to pull all enemies toward them, and they're going to be able to gather aggro quicker. So I need to see Gorfien's Grasp in action before I can make a real accurate judgment on it. Remorseless Winter is just another AoE. It deals all that damage. Obviously, it's going to scale with attack power, and it's going to hit 8 times because it hits every 1 second for 8 seconds. It's going to reduce everybody's movement speed, and as soon as they get hit the 5th time, they're stunned. In a turtling situation in PvP, as well as in AoE situations in dungeons, this will be really good because you're getting the threat from the damage, as well as stunning everything that's trying to run away from you. Or doing damage to you, and that way you're not taking as much damage. And Desecrated Ground is pretty much an improved Consecrate. See what they did there? Desecrate, Consecrate. It's basically the same thing, except the loss of control prevention is actually what makes it better. I also need to see the loss of control in action in a PvP situation to see how useful it is there. As far as in a dungeoning, it's great for tanks. Not useless for DPS, but not as good as it is for tanks. I would probably pick, just based on the numbers that we've got there, the 1614 to 1875, just based on those numbers, when they scale up, the amount of damage it's going to do, I would probably go Desecrated Ground for my own personal Death Knight. Probably Remorseless Winter for tanking. And like I said, Gorfien's Grasp needs to be seen for me to make an accurate judgment. And after all that, we head down here. We go to the level 87 talent, which is Soul Reaper. Soul Reaper is a melee range, 6-second cooldown, and it requires a melee weapon. And you strike an enemy for 100% weapon damage and afflicts the target with Soul Reaper. After 5 seconds, if the target is below 35% health, this effect will deal 46,114 to 53,590 additional shadow damage. If the enemy dies before this effect triggers, the Death Knight gains 50% haste for 10 seconds. So you pop Soul Reaper, and I'm assuming those numbers are going to scale a little bit with attack power as well. But you hit the enemy for weapon damage, and the target gets Soul Reaper. After 5 seconds, if it's, say, a boss, the below 35% health, it's going to burst damage. Straight burst damage. If, say, you popped it on a trash mob, and the trash mob dies, you've got 50% haste for the next 10 seconds. This needs to be probably nerfed a little bit. I'm not sure by how much, because, again, I need to see it in action. But for now, it seems kind of overpowered. Alright, everybody, that is the end of this video on Death Knights. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below or send me a personal message here on YouTube. I would also like you to check out my channel. Please like and subscribe anything you actually like, and I will see you next time.